evening. Welcome to the National News Broadcast. I'm Kasuni Balachandra.
Good evening, I'm Clifford Richards. First of all, we take a look at the headlines. The Prime Minister states that the contribution rendered by the Sri Lanka Amarapura Mahanikaya in creating an educated and an intelligent Sangha population is enormous. Minister Chamal Rajapaksa states that certain outdated laws are a hindrance to the country's development. Locally grown fruits and vegetables exported for the first time from Mattala. Minister Prasanna Ranatunga calls for a report from the airport officials on the damage caused by storing paddy at the Mattala airport. The Russian vaccine introduced against COVID-19 enters production. Moving on to the stories in detail. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa states that the contribution rendered by the Sri Lanka Amarapura Mahanikaya in creating an educated and an intelligent Sangha population is enormous. The Premier made this comment joining in the ceremony to declare open the new Sangha Council office building of the Amarapura chapter. Well, the Sangha Council office is located at number 70 Gold Road, Colombo 6. The Sri Lanka Amarapura Mahanikaya, which was established 217 years ago, did not have a permanent office building. Therefore, the land area for the construction of an office complex was granted during the presidency of incumbent Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The Vice President of the Dayaka Sabha of the Amarapura chapter, Ajit Desoisa, also contributed in the construction of this building. The inauguration ceremony took place under the patronage of the Honorary Chief Prelate of the Sri Lanka Amarapura Mahanikaya, the Most Venerable Kotugoda Dhammavasathera. Chief Prelate of the Sri Lanka Amarapura Mahanikaya, the Most Venerable Kotugoda Dhammavasathera, called to mind that 9 years ago, when the incumbent Prime Minister was the President, a request put forward by the prelates was considered and a pledge was made to the required land that will be obtained and offered to the chapter. The Thera noted that a priceless land area in a significant location has been donated to the Amarapura chapter. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also called to mind that although the Amarapura chapter was established over 200 years ago, the Sangha Council did not have a permanent building and he received the opportunity to donate a land area for the purpose. The Premier further stated that he is glad that he received the opportunity to declare the building open. Premier Rajapaksa noted that the chief prelate of this chapter has conducted over 1,000 Dhamma sermons, rendering an immense service as part of a contribution of the Amarapura chapter in creating an educated and intelligent Sangha population.
මෙදන්නේ උන්වහන්සේ දහස් ගණනකට වැඩි ධර්ම දේශනා පවත්වලා ඇති මේ මහානායක හාමුදුරුවෝ විශාල ශාස්ත්‍රික සේවයක් සිදු වෙමින් පවතිනවා. ඒ විශේෂයෙන්ම උන්වහන්සේගේ ඉල්ලීම් පරිදි මෙම භූමිය ලබා දෙන්නට පුළුවන් වීම ගැන සන්තෝෂ වෙනවා. මම සන්තෝෂ වෙන්නේ අද වගේ උත්සවයක් අදට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න ලැබෙන්නේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු යන හාමුදුරුවෝ රණ්ඩු වෙන වෙලාවක මේ වගේ උත්සවයකට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න ලැබීම මම සන්තෝෂ වෙනවා.
Something that changes your life story. Litro Gas.
Exporting fruits and vegetables from the Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport commenced for the first time yesterday. Cargo flights from the airport commenced for the first time after a lapse of 5 years on the 9th of this month. A flight of Salam Air from Oman touched down at the Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport with 150 passengers on board last night. Around 4,000 kilos of locally grown fruits and vegetables were sent to Oman in this flight. In addition, 15 Sri Lankans also left for Oman in the same flight for employment. Cargo flight operations from the Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport commenced on the 9th of this month with a stock of 28 metric tons of garments exported to the USA via an Emirates flight. Potato harvesting of the Yalla cultivation season has commenced. Agro officials state that the potato harvest cultivated in over 4,500 hectares of farmland during the previous Yalla cultivation season will be available in the market. Local farmers were encouraged to engage in potato cultivation after the import duty on imported potatoes was increased in a bid to uplift the local potato farmer. The farmers state that currently the wholesale price of a kilo of potatoes ranges between 110 and 120 rupees. Areas in which potatoes are mostly grown are Valimada, Uvaparanagama, Kappetipula and Boralanda. The harvests will be arriving in the market until December. The Southern Provincial Industrial Development Authority introduced salt, including table salt and pure coconut oil, as new hygiene products to the market recently. Previously, no other government entity had issued salt products to the market except Sri Lanka Salt Corporation. These products can be purchased at concessionary prices.
Minister Prasanna Ranatunga has called for a report from the airport officials on the damage caused by storing paddy at the Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport during the Yahapalana government. The minister has emphasized that the report needs to be submitted to him within a week with an accurate estimation of the damages. Well, these instructions were given at a discussion held at the premises of the Kattanayake International Airport with the participation of Minister Prasanna Ranatunga and State Minister D.V. Chanaka. At the discussion, trade union representatives pointed out that the Airport and Aviation Services Company has not presented an accurate estimation so far. When Minister Prasanna Ranatunga queried from the financial head of the company, the individual had admitted the lapse. The minister therefore emphasized that an accurate estimation is necessary. During the previous Yahapalana government, the cargo storage complex of the Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport, which is worth 2 billion rupees, was used to store paddy. The scanners, high technology equipment and deep freezers were reportedly dismantled to make way for storing paddy. The Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed a probe into the incident revealed that by storing paddy, damages were caused to the air conditioning system and electricity supply and electric lighting system of the runway as well. At the discussion, Minister Prasanna Ranatunga stated that the country should be made aware of the damage caused to the Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport by the Yahapalana government by storing paddy. The minister further said that the previous government neglected the Mattala Airport as they wanted it to die a natural death. However, after President Gotabaya Rajapaksa came into power, steps were taken to transform the airport into an operational airport.
The owner of the multi-day fishing vessel and the 4 fishermen who were arrested in connection with the inhuman harassment and abuse of a 16-year-old male child who was taken out to sea for fishing activities have been remanded until the 27th of August. The child in concern had reportedly been enticed into fishing around 1.5 months ago and had been taken out to sea from the Mirissa Fisheries Harbour aboard the Dulmini multi-day fishing vessel. The child has reportedly been subjected to inhuman abuse and sexual harassment. The child has been deployed in fishing by producing fake documents. He was admitted to the Mathura hospital after the vessel reached the shore on the 12th of this month. Police media spokesman SSP Jalia Senaratna said that investigations are underway into the brutality unleashed on the child. He added that in addition, a separate inquiry has been initiated into the owner of the vessel on suspicion of irregular revenue earned by deploying underage children in fishing activities. Once the incident came to light, State Ministers Kanchana Wijasekara and P.L. Nishantha arrived together with Parliamentarian Mahinda Abeyawardena at the Mathura hospital and inquired into the condition of the child. Senior police officials and a group of officials of the Ministry of Social Welfare also visited the hospital. Meanwhile, 12 kilos of artificial narcotics were discovered from a beach road area at Pattabendimulla in Ambalangoda. The narcotics were hidden in a refuse storage site. A raid was carried out in the area upon a tip-off received by the Mount Lavinia police. One suspect was arrested.
Minister Chamal Rajapaksa states that certain outdated laws are a hindrance to the country's development and therefore it is necessary to amend such laws. The minister expressed this view joining in a rally organized at the Suryavaba Town Hall yesterday. He was accompanied by Minister Namal Rajapaksa. Minister Chamal Rajapaksa said that the country has received a disciplined president as the country and its people need discipline. He added that the outdated laws that hinder the development of the country should be changed. He further stated that the progress of the government will be evaluated every 6 months.
සීමා මායින් අපි වෙනස් කළ යුතුව තියෙනවා. මේ මාස 6න් 6ට අපේ රජයේ ප්‍රගතිය පිළිබඳව සමාලෝචනයක් කළ යුතුව තියෙනවා. ඡන්දයක් වෙනකම් මේ ඉන්න එපා. ඔක්කොම හිතේ තියාගෙන ඡන්දයක් ආවම ආමද පාඩමක් උගන්වන්න කියලා ගහනවා අනිත් පැත්තට. ගහන දුක් වෙනවා. 2015 වුණ එහෙමනේ. ආල පහන ළඟ හිටපු මිනිස්සුන්ගේ වැරදි උගන්වන්නම් පාඩමක් කියලා ටිකක් ඡන්ද ගන්න බලය අඩු කරන්න කියලා ගහනවා බලනකොට අනිත් පැත්තට ගිහිලි ඉවරයි. ඉතින් දුක් විඳිනවා. පහුගිය අවුරුදු 5 වින්දේ. අපි ගෙනල්ලා ආරම්භ කරලා ලංකාවේ පළවෙනි
Minister Namal Rajapaksa said that back then they initiated the first computer manufacturing company in Sri Lanka, and when the government changed, around 200 youth were employed at the company. The minister charged that the owner of the company was summoned to the FCID around 45 times, resulting in the company being closed down. However, now it has been recommenced. The minister also alleged that the construction work of a building spanning 200,000 square feet was halted midway. Minister Namal Rajapaksa further stated that discussions have taken place with the ministry headed by Professor G.L. Peris, and thereby steps will be taken to initiate a university in information technology in the Suryawava area within this year.
The 9th Parliament of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka is set to convene on the 20th of this month. We now bring you the segment on the parliamentary history of Sri Lanka. Today we look back at the second parliament that convened after 1978. After the 1977 general election, the then UNP government extended the term of the government through a referendum. Thereby, the first general election to be conducted under the proportional representation system was held in 1989 during the tenure of then President Ranasinghe Premadasa, who was voted into office at the 1988 presidential election. The 1989 parliamentary election is regarded as the most corrupt election held in the history of the country, embroiled in violence as the LTTE terrorism raged in the north and east, with the JVP insurrection widespread in the south, whilst allegations of the state-sponsored terror were surfacing. The prevailing situation resulted in the percentage of total polled votes to be as low as 63%. 11 candidates were slain. The election, which was conducted amidst many irregularities, saw the United National Party winning 125 seats with 15 national list slots. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party obtained 67 seats, whilst the Mahajana Eksat Peramuna, headed by Dinesh Gunawardena, obtained 3 seats. The Prime Minister of the government that came to power at the 1989 election was D.B. Wijetunga, who held office until 1993. Sirmama Bandaranaike assumed the role of opposition leader, whilst M.H. Mohammed was elected as the Speaker of the House, with Gamini Fonseca as the Deputy Speaker. The leaders of the House were Ranil Wickremesinghe and Vijaypala Mendes, whilst the Chief Opposition Whip was Richard Pathirana. The second parliament was significant as during its term an impeachment was presented against then President Ranasinghe Premadasa. The then Speaker M.H. Mohammed did not accept the impeachment motion, which bore the signatures of 47 parliamentarians, and the pioneers in presenting the impeachment, Lalithatlat Mudali, Gamni Dissanayake and G.H. Premachandra, were expelled from the party. The era saw several political assassinations. Then Defence Minister Ranjan Wijeratne was killed in a bomb attack on the 2nd of March 1991. On the 23rd of April 1993, Lalithatlat Mudali was killed after being shot by an unidentified gunman at Kirulapana. Thereafter, on the 1st of May 1993, then President Ranasinghe Premadasa was killed in a suicide bomb blast. After the assassination of the President, then Prime Minister D.B. Wijetunga ascended to the presidency, whilst Ranil Wickremesinghe served as Prime Minister from 1993 to 1994.
Defence Secretary retired Major General Kamal Gunaratne states that it has come to the point where the task to suppress the underworld will have to be taken forward, whilst having prison officials who worship certain underworld members. The Defence Secretary states that the underworld activities, drug smuggling and land scams will be brought to a stop. The Defence Secretary expressed these views at a ceremony organized by the Harimaga organization at the Colombo Foundation Institute yesterday. The theme of the ceremony focused on the post-COVID-19 restoration and the current future development in the country. At the ceremony, the Defence Secretary said that security is a decisive factor in the current development of the country. The Defence Secretary said that especially in the Colombo area, most concerning issue is land scams, and it has transformed into a major issue in the Western Province. He further stated that the separate unit was launched at the CID 2 weeks ago to prevent land frauds and the forceful acquisition of land. Commenting on the irregularities reported within the prisons, the Defence Secretary stated that necessary steps were taken and such irregularities have been brought to a stop. He further stated that the police officers in certain areas have rendered full support to the police and STF personnel engaged in operations to nab organised criminals.
ಸರ್ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಎකට ಪත් වෙලා මට වීඩියෝ ක්ලිප් එකක් එව පොඩි එකක් බන්ධනාගාරයේ නිලධාරියෙක් කංජිපාණි ඉම්රාන්ගේ සෙල් එකට ගිහිලා වඳිනවා මේ. මටත් ඒක අදාහ ගන්න බැරි වුණා. ඉතින් අපිට වැඩ කරන්න වෙලා තියෙන්නේ ඔන්න ඕ වගේ අයවලුනුත් සමගයි. ඔබගේ පොලිස් ඒරියා එකේ STF එක ඇවිල්ලා ගංජායෙන් අල්ලනවා නම් STF එක ඇවිල්ලා කුඩු අල්ලනවා නම් සංවිධානාත්මක අපරාධකාරයෝ අල්ලනවා නම් තුවක්කු අල්ලනවා නම් ඔබ මොනවද කළේ එච්චරකල්? සමහර පොලිස් ස්ථානවල OIC මහත්තුරු බොහොම උනන්දුවෙන් වැඩ කරනවා. සිලියුට් ගහන්න ඉන්න කට්ටියට පැත්තකට වෙලා සිලියුට් එක ගහන්න කියලා දක්ෂ නිලධාරීන් උඩට අරගෙන ඒ අයට ඒ තනතුරු ලබා දීලා තමුන්නාන්සේලාට යහතින් සාමයෙන් සතුටින් ජීවත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් පරිසරයක් ඇති කරන්න අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන් හැමදේම අපි කරනවා.
Several ceremonies to welcome the newly appointed cabinet ministers and state ministers were organized at various locations in the country today as well. The ceremony was organized to welcome Minister Vasudeva Nanayakara, who assumed duties as the subject minister of water supply. Residents of the areas of Kakirava, Anuradhapura and Galin Bidruwava welcomed Ministers S.M. Chandrasena, who assumed duties at the Lands Ministry. State Minister Attorney at Law Anuradha Jayaratne states that the President has provided all ministers with instructions. Minister of Health Pavitra Devi Vanyarachi attended many welcome ceremonies throughout today, organised by Sri Lanka Podujana Peramana Party members of the Kolunnawa electorate. Ceremonies to welcome Minister Vimal Veeravansha were organised in the Kaduwela and Navagamu areas today. This is the first series of ceremonies that have been organised to welcome Minister Veeravansha after he took oaths as a cabinet minister. State Minister Ajit Tiwari Cabral engaged in discussion with the media regarding the economy of the country at Kandy.
Minister Johnston Fernando says that steps will be taken to speedily resolve the issues faced by residents of the Nikavaratia area due to wild elephants invading villages. In a discussion in this regard was held at and chaired by the minister yesterday. Well, residents of the area complained that a herd of around 100 wild elephants wandering in the Inginimitia Reserve invade surrounding villages and destroy crops. The elephants reportedly wander in the mini forests that surround the village. The area residents state that although the land areas were granted through licenses, the owners are not clearing the land. Unauthorized cultivations in the Inginimitia Reserve are also another reason for the wild elephants to invade villages. And moving away from the local stories, we now have a quick roundup of the global scenario of the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, starting off with France, France is set to propose face masks in workplaces as it grapples with the coronavirus rebound to more than 3,000 in the past 24 hours, a post-lockdown high for the fourth day in a row. Meanwhile, South Korea's new cases jumped to 279 today, rising above 200 for the first time in 5 months, due to mainly the sporadic local infections in the Greater Seoul area. Worldwide corona cases surpassed 21,000 or rather 21.64 million, with more than 769,000 people dying from the disease. France is expecting to propose face masks in shared workplaces as well as the country grapples with the coronavirus rebound in the past 24 hours with more than 3,000. Well, in the meantime, South Korea has reportedly announced 279 new coronavirus cases in the highest daily jump since early March. It fears grow about a massive outbreak in the greater capital region. The national caseload in South Korea has increased to over 15,000, including 305 deaths. The number of new cases is the highest since 367 on March 8th. Of the new cases, 267 were local transmissions, while keeping the death toll at 305 with no additional fatalities reported. And moving into Brazil, Brazil has registered over 41,000 cases and 709 deaths. Overall, the country now has more than 107,000 deaths and over 3.3 million confirmed cases. Well, in Mexico, recording at least 6,300 new cases, pushing the total to over 517,000. The country also reported an additional 635 new fatalities, making a total of 56,543 deaths. A new coronavirus outbreak in New Zealand continues to grow after recording 13 new cases, bringing the total to 69 new cases. Meanwhile, raising concerns over the September general election. After stifling the virus earlier this year and after 102 days without new infections, a resurgence last week in Auckland prompted an immediate lockdown of the country's largest city. And moving into India shortly, India is reporting more than 63,000 COVID-19 cases and 944 deaths yesterday, as the country has reported more than 660,000 infections for the ninth time in 10 days, pushing its tally to over 2.58 million. India is the third worst hit nation in terms of number of infections, behind the US and Brazil, which have recorded more cases and have substantially higher death tolls from the viral illness. And moving down under to Australia, well, the situation in Australia, which was struggling with a coronavirus resurgence in two of its largest states, with New South Wales and Victoria, has reported a further decline in the number of new infections. New South Wales reported 5 new cases, while Victoria reported 279 cases today, with 16 deaths. The daily number of new cases this week has been well below the August 5th peak of 725. Victoria's capital, Melbourne, remains under strict lockdown.
And in most stories, tourist attractions in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, including the Christ the Redeemer statue and the Aquarium, reopened for a limited number of guests this weekend after months of closure due to health concerns. Yet, Brazil still has the world's worst coronavirus outbreak outside of the U.S.
A ribbon-cutting ceremony marked the reopening of the Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro. The famous Brazilian landmark, along with Sugarloaf Mountain, welcomed visitors once again on Saturday after both attractions were closed for 5 months. But with health precautions still in place, these major tourism sites have opened with reduced hours and limited capacity. The Aqua Rio Aquarium was disinfected and shark tanks inspected Friday in preparation for weekend guests. Social distancing, face coverings, and hand sanitizing is mandatory for the humans. Despite these gradual reopenings, experts warn Brazil has yet to hit the peak of its health emergency.
Sputnik V, the Russian vaccine introduced against COVID-19, has entered production. Meanwhile, it is reported that agreements have been signed to purchase 90 million dosages of the vaccine currently being tested in the UK. Meanwhile, back in Sri Lanka, 3 COVID-19 positive cases were detected today from amongst returnees from Oman. The total number of fully recovered COVID-19 patients in the country currently stands at 2,670. This is a percentage of 92.29. The number of patients undergoing further hospitalized treatment accounts for 7.32%. A flight carrying a group of 279 migrant Sri Lankans who were stranded in Dubai due to the COVID-19 epidemic returned to the island this morning. They were subjected to PCR testing at the Matala Rajapaksa International Airport and sent for quarantine. A group of 422 returnees from Dubai arrived in the island this evening. They were also subjected to PCR testing at the airport and sent for quarantine. The Hatton Kotagala Mount Vernon Tea Factory has been awarded the certification issued by the Standard Bureau for the tea factory in the world to produce tea leaves adhering to COVID-19 health and safety procedures. The certificate of standardization was awarded to the estate superintendent by the Director General of SLS.
Well, what a great feat indeed. On that victorious note, we end the news. Do enjoy the rest of the program. Take care and good night.
Good night.